It's time for Respect the Process, a short chat about commercial filmmaking. Here's your host, director Jordan Brady.
Oh, thank you, Helen. Listeners, it is June 12th, 2025. My guest is director, writer, producer Matt Macedo. Matt and I talked a few years ago. I think he took the master class. I was on his podcast. And now he is crushing it, making vertical videos. He's a director. He's directing vertical videos. Verticals, we call them. Helen, you're looking at me like I'm a crazy person. Verticals are these new, they're released a minute at a time, but they're feature-length scripts. And my daughter, Gabi Feingold, who moved back from New York, has been booking them she booked like 7 of them since she's been home. And they're like, I'm in love with my billionaire boss. I'm the heir to the Luna werewolf tribe. I mean, they're crazy names. And they're like soap operas or novellas, and I find it fascinating. So I asked Matt about like keeping that flow state, that adaptability, because it's so fast moving. They're shooting, I think he said, like 10 pages a day sometimes or more. You know, what are the creative logistical challenges that he faces? He's going to tell us. And how aspiring filmmakers and actors can best leverage the opportunities in the new vertical video industry. It's billions of dollars, this industry. So I don't know everything about it. I've learned from Gabi. I've learned from Matt. And I think you're going to like this conversation. The Filmmaker Retreat is coming up. I can't believe it's June, and the Filmmaker Retreat is September 25th through the 28th. We have 6 spots left. A great group of filmmakers showing up. It will sell out, so save your spot now. Helen, I just did my first onboarding call, and it's supposed to be like 20 minutes, and we talked for an hour, the filmmaker and I. And we just, it's like a greet and howdy. You get to know each other. And I have a questionnaire with, where I look at your work and you tell me what you want to come away with. What are your passion projects? What charities do you like? That's a question on the questionnaire. How can you make a passion project to propel your career? The overarching theme is define your voice. That's what we're all about. I am off on a cross-country trip in about 5 hours. I'm leaving, and I'm going to drive across the country with my son, Ben Brady. Jake Brady will be holding down the fort, pushing out pod snacks and whatnot. We have a great conversation with Matt, so enjoy. I was on your podcast, I think, a couple years ago.
Crazy how time's already flown by like that, right? Yeah.
Thank you for having me, by the way. That was fun.
Oh, for sure. Well, thanks for returning the favor and having me on your podcast. And now that I actually have something to talk about, versus having you on, I was getting all sorts of education from you.
Well, you're very kind. But, I thought it was appropriate because, so my daughter, Gabi Feingold, for anyone listening, Feingold, she moved back home after being in New York a couple years. She's an actor, singer, dancer, you name it. And she started auditioning for vertical videos. And I said, you have to hook up with Matt, or you should follow him, because you're the first person that I know that was into it. And I think we even chatted about a contract you were offered. Am I right?
Perhaps. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, when we had
Tell me if I'm wrong.
For sure. No, I think so. I think I've always sought guidance from you, so when I was going through some stuff.
Many do.
Yeah, and so I needed some advice for sure. But yeah, that was like a really, interesting time. I never did sign any sort of exclusive contract with anybody, but they did keep me very, very busy.
Oh, it's been amazing and to watch, because when we chatted about it, I hadn't really heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to shoot in 10 days, and they're like 90-page scripts, 100-page scripts. They're full movies.
Well, it's even less than that now. I'm getting, I just did an 80-page script that we had to shoot in sorry, a 70-page script that we had to shoot in 5 days total. And so
Wow.
it's so much fun though. I say that it is a bit nerve-wracking if you're doing so many back to back. I could do two back to back and then I need some time off. I'm in my time off period right now, but as
For
soon as
prep.
well, I mean, I'm in between gigs right now. So
Yeah.
I have some folks asking for late June, early July, but nothing's ever set in stone with these projects. So until there's a contract sent over, which is usually like a day or two before we even start filming, it's really, I just go based off whenever a script is sent to me, and then I just
This
get
is
started right away.
amazing. No,
Yeah, it is.
I want to hear the whole process, but for listeners right now that don't know what we're talking about, you've been living under a rock. And the vertical videos are feature films, and they're distributed in 1 minute chunks, either on Short Max, Reel. I'm sure you can rattle off a bunch of different platforms. What's the big one?
The biggest one is Real Short,
Real Shorts.
for
That's
sure.
right. That's what Gabby just did. Real Shorts, and they are filmed vertically. I think soon people are going to abbreviate it to verts. Hey, I'm doing a vert.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't taken off now. And they're distributed in short form, so and each minute has a hook,
Yeah.
a cliffhanger like a novella that keeps you addicted. So if you go on YouTube, you can watch a couple for free. If you download an app, you get the first few for free, and then you're addicted, and you have to sign up so you can keep watching in succession.
Yeah. And
And they're
they're not making just millions off of this. They're making billions. It is
Yeah.
such a sleeping giant in Hollywood right now. And I mean, it's so funny because I was watching just, on YouTube, I was watching a news story the other day, and it was for a news based in France. And they were going around the empty studios. I think it was Surreal Studio. And, they were interviewing the creator of the studio, and they were so dismissive of the
Yeah.
only thing filming here is these guys back here shooting a vertical for social media. And it was so dismissed. And it's like, you guys have no idea what is going on there. And I
I
mean,
had fr-
it's all non-union, so it's all kind of still kept under the radar. They're very much taking advantage of us. But, at the same time, it's just all these opportunities right now that so many people are taking advantage of and growing from and learning from. So it's definitely a cool wave to be a part of right now, for sure.
Well, I'm going to post a link to whatever you give me at jordanbrady.com with the podcast, because people are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever they get their pod, right? So listeners, check it out. But your level of craft is so sharp. And think about it like I tell people that want to direct commercials, maybe take a job if you're young, take a job at an agency, because they have these in-house production companies now, like built into the agency, because you'll get your reps in. You'll be shooting all the time. You don't care if it's for dog food or a sports drink. You're just shooting. It could be a testimonial for a lawyer. Who cares? You're on set. You're working with people, actors, crew. The verticals, and I don't want this to sound dismissive, but it's a gig getting your reps in, and anybody that can do a full 80, 90 pages in, you said 8 days?
Roughly, yeah, we're getting between 5 to 8 to 9 days for these
Okay,
shoots.
so in 5 days, your level of craft has got to be on point now compared to where you were a couple years ago. Like when I was on your podcast, you've done short films and feature films and commercials, but now the level of improvisation as a filmmaker, I don't mean like putting on a funny hat and making up a line, but as a problem solver, filmmaking, you got to think on your feet.
Yes, yes. The biggest thing that I told somebody recently is there's a state of flow that you have to be in, especially when there's this constant problem solving that you have to be in. And sometimes things don't look a particular way. Sometimes they don't match the vision that you had. And why are you going to be an obstacle saying, like, no, we have to stop now. We have to get it this way. We have to do this or do that. Like, why, just disrupt that flow that needs to happen. So, people that I worked with, they're like, man, you're so chill. You're so like relaxed. If there's any problem that comes up, you're like, it's fine. We'll just do this instead or do this. And that's the way you have to be, with these things in order to get, everything accomplished on time. And it's just, I've started doing some BTS and like literally having a videographer with me filming kind of the whole experience of what it's like
Sure.
to be on these. And so that'll come out when that show comes out. But yeah, I just really want to share what it's like to be doing these. And I mean, I would love to share with you a link. At this point, it just has to be my website because I've done 13 of these
Wow.
now. And so imagine I've done this, I started mid 2023, and I need
Uh-huh.
to do a page count for how many pages total of the scripts that I've done. But imagine 13 basically feature length projects in just over a year. And so
That's
it's just
insane.
like, it's been, yeah.
I told Gabby, I said 10 or 11 that he's done because the last time maybe it was on social media, you were up to 8, and I figured, well, he's cranking them out. And
Yeah, left and right. Yeah.
Matt, to your point about dismissive, right? The industry being dismissive. It's funny. I'm in the Directors Guild of America, right?
Mm.
And I direct my commercials and movies and things it's a DGA shoot. And I didn't go to the annual meeting. I believe it was last week or the week before. I was out of town. I voted by proxy, though. I'm a participant. And I'm always, whenever I'm asked my opinion, I'm like, well, I think they're a little antiquated with all the opportunities that young filmmakers have. Like with commercial directors, I'm very vocal that you should not make a young film or new filmmaker, I don't care how old they are, you should not make them join right away because it
Mm.
prices them out of work, right? There's just inherent costs with a bigger union budget and union crews and directors and whatnot. And so, because, yeah, I want people to build their confidence and their skill doing lower budget commercials.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I wasn't there, but a bunch of friends told me that someone said, what about these verticals? And the person on the panel, because I wasn't there, so I don't know who it was, said, I don't know about these. And no one on the dais knew what they were talking about. And then somebody said, well, we are looking into podcasts. Like, oh my God. Like, so you're going to have a DJ director at the Joe Rogan show doing a multicam webcam show? That's
Mm.
you're 15 years too late. But
Mhm.
I mean, that isn't a creative. I'm sure technical directing is a creative thing. I'm not dissing our multicam brothers and sisters. But you get what I'm saying. They're unaware that it even exists at the top level. And
Yeah.
it could be a source of income and an area of creativity that could help people and get filmmakers new opportunities. Now
Mhm.
they have to understand the economics of it. Same
For
with
sure.
SAG and actors. Like sooner or later, SAG's going to say, hey, we want to make a deal with vertical productions for actors, but it can't price actors out of it. It's got to be inclusive.
Mhm. That's very true. I don't know what kind of deal Real Short has lately with some production or some studios. I've seen them filming at, Paramount lately.
Yeah.
I've seen them on Warner Brothers a lot. I heard a rumor. I don't know. Again, it's just a rumor, so don't quote me on it. But um, apparently, Real Short is making more money than Netflix. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's even possible yet. But when you look into the logistics of like how much they charge a customer for each of these series, they charge about $50 per series. Yeah. And so
50?
imagine these paying customers, they're paying, gosh, you know, at least probably, I don't even know because I haven't looked it up, but they're paying, a couple $100 a year just to have access to these subscriptions, and there's so many platforms out there. It's ridiculous how many platforms are out there. There's too many, to honestly to be able to say that, but it's, I do feel like we're in a bit of like a Roger Corman era, to where all of these are just like so many low budget, they range from about 100 to $150,000 budgets about. And, again, they're full length feature scripts, 80 to, 120 pages long. You know, I have a bit of like a little reputation on my side of things for being on schedule a lot of the time. And so they feel very comfortable with giving me 16 to 18 page days, and I kind of,
Wow.
it, there's so much compromising from my end that I have to do. And so, when you pile on that many, pages of a script or whatever to do for that day, like you're getting down to just basic coverage, for capturing those scenes, which is a lot of the time all they really want is just the basic, two-shot cross coverage insert on whatever, but yeah, it's just
What about how many takes? I think Gabby told me they get two takes. The
two
actors.
takes max. Yes. I usually, I love when the actors hit it in one. I call them my one take wonders, but I will, it's a balance. So I'll do at least two. I'll ask an actor if they want one more, if they want to do anything different, if they want to just give me something extra or do whatever. Most of the time they're good to just move on, so that we move on. But it is, it's just a well-oiled machine. I would love for you to come on set one day to see it.
Oh, I would
But
love to. That
I
would be
know,
a
yeah,
blast.
yeah, it would be a lot of fun.
Talk to me about the practicality, challenges, and opportunities of shooting in a vertical frame. And I'm a convert, right? I've done a lot of commercials with both. I used to use two cameras, one twisted 90 degrees and the other now there's no time or budget, so it's shot wider.
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
imagining you turn the camera sideways.
So people are doing it both ways,
Yeah.
specifically like Pocket FM. If they want to release it on YouTube as well, or any other platforms, for example, they'll shoot horizontally and then frame vertically as well.
Mhm.
Have those frame guides in there. Typically, the way that I've always shot is the camera literally flipped, shooting vertically. And there is, advantages and disadvantages to it, So for example, the characters or the actors, they have to be very, very still. They can barely move because, I mean, the frame is
Yeah.
already shoulder to shoulder.
Do
So
you cast skinnier people for the vertical frame?
I actually, fun fact, I don't even have input on the casting.
Oh, really?
I'm brought onto a project. Usually the actors are already there, and I'm just, usually I
Oh,
don't
you
even have.
said the day before the shoot, you're hired.
Well, usually even the actors sometimes the day before the shoot, they're learning their lines as, we're shooting a lot of the times. It's insane. I say each project is a miracle because it really, really is. I mean,
Well,
just the amount of, yeah, craziness going on.
soap opera actors always, whenever I work with a soap opera actor, you can throw them any curveball in that flow state you mentioned. They're just used to learning lines on the fly. And I would imagine that the same, just going to the gym. This is like you're becoming you're building that actor muscle
Yeah.
of not just
100%.
memorizing, but of performance. And then now, before I get there,
Mhm.
I'm looking at your webpage, The Unwanted Mate. Is that the one where someone turns into a wolf or something? Or
Well, most of them, I was getting typecasted for a little bit. I had to prove to platforms that I was able to do other shows other than the werewolf romance. But yeah, my first two shows, so that's my second one. My very first one was a show called Call Me Alpha, which was, the title alone, like, oof. But
Yeah.
it was
Kiss Me,
werewolf.
My Fated Alpha. The Alpha King is my second mate. That's the one with had a good. It's a pretty fun. Let me just say this: the effects were on the trailer where someone turns into a wolf and there's a couple wolves. It's better than the CW or whatever those networks
Sure,
were.
yeah. It's
So
hilarious.
kudos.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, again, too, I'm out of it at that point. I'm there for the pre-production, film it, and then I'll, producers and everybody
edit.
had it. Yeah, I'll give a round of notes usually for
Mhm.
editing, but they all, they handle it in China. Even some of the producers are
Yeah.
like, that's costs $1 or $2 to have that effect in China. So they joke about it. But again, like going back to the framing, like how
Yeah.
the advantages of having it be in a vertical frame is, in terms of production design, a lot less that you have to worry about for that.
Lights get closer.
Yeah, all of that, I've been able to cheat locations a lot easier. So like, for example,
Hmm.
like there's two clips on my Instagram right now that I posted recently. One, it looks very, very cheesy, of course, but again, when I went to a tech scout and everything's already chosen for me. I'm told we have to shoot a jail scene in the garage. It's like, okay, so I have to come up with how we're going to do that. So
How'd you do that?
well, I asked the production designer just build some bars to have in the foreground, and wherever we're filming, we can have those in the foreground, shoot through them, and then that's all we really need. And
The
so,
jail could be in a restaurant, like it's an upscale, low security prison. Just put
yeah,
the bars in front.
I mean, literally, we squeeze out every possible location out of a location. So, I mean, every bedroom, every living room, locate like everything.
I did a
Um,
jail. I just interject. I did a jail bit once in a commercial. Same thing. We used the garage because it had a just a plain wall, and we played with the shadows and the bars that the art department brought were these rubber, jail bars. And when you shut them, they just kind of shake a little bit.
sure, sure,
And if
sure.
the guy
Yeah,
grabs them, they are easily bent. Like you could break out of TV
yeah,
jail
you could
quite
easily break
easily.
out of it. Yeah. And so in those moments too, like talk about the flow state, I could have been, the bars that we got, they didn't have any rustic look to them. They just looked like
Yeah.
they were freshly painted PVC. Everybody's rushed during this. So he only had really like maybe less than a day to get those bars set for just that one scene. And I could have, said, we need it to look this way more. We need to, and just cause some disruption to the flow rather than just being okay with it and quickly getting what we need. And then again, some other scenes like I have them coming out of a closet instead of the front door, just because we could easily crop out, like all of these kinds of
You
things.
just need a
Yeah.
part of the door. It goes
Yeah.
back, Matt, to one of the things that I am always preaching. What does the camera see?
Mm.
And I'm often trying to convince or having to convince ad agency creatives, like, don't worry. You know, don't worry. People will think it's a front door. Who
Yeah.
cares if they're coming out of the closet? You see the edge of that door swing open. We'll put a sound effect when it closes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and everyone will think it's a mansion.
Yeah.
Because and sometimes theater of the mind
Mm.
is stronger in telling the story than actually seeing the front door. Because then what kind of front door is it? Is there a glass window above? Do we have to put a gel on that? Like, I'm
Mhm.
loving this. And so more vertical opportunities and challenges. What did you do with the bars, the freshly painted PVC? Just put
So
them out of
again, just
focus?
just put them in the fort. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
no, I mean, there's nothing else that we could do other than just shoot it the way that they are. So that's just a lesson learned for later on. Now, if I have to do something like that again, I'll be sure to tell them, like, make sure they look rusted. They were like a little crooked too, because I mean, he had like a wooden base on the bottom, but then a pool noodle for the top part, and it just looked kind of, janky. But again, that's just the process of these verticals. It's not, they're not meant to look perfect. But I do consider these a master class for literally everybody involved. For the actors, again, getting the script the night before, setting them up if they do want to work in soap operas one day. I don't know if they would, but again, it's that same muscle, you know. For me as a director, every night when I come home after set, I still have so much energy because I'm doing what I love to do. As a child, this was a hobby of mine. So I stay up super late and I'm looking over the scenes for the next day and I'm literally blocking it out, getting it ready. So that way, when I get there on the next day, again, it's just so quick. And something that I really love to say at our safety meeting on the first day is, I like to tell everybody, like, we're all just big kids living our dreams. There's only a little bit of stress because it's not
Mhm.
Warner Brothers. It's not like that level of stress that we need to have on ourselves. But, there's an expectation that we need to, achieve something, of course. But again, too, like, let's just have fun with it. So my sets have been a lot of fun, thankfully. Lots of laughter. And yeah.
I can tell you're chill on set just by this chat and talking to you before. Are there producers on set, like the studio or from China, people
Yeah.
kind of overseeing, or there's a video village?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll have some representatives from platforms and clients and all that on set too. And, sometimes they have to interject what they would want, of course, like any client would do. And my job would be to, logistically kind of say why it wouldn't work, right? So
Right.
this reminds me of a scene, in two projects ago that it's not out yet, but again, in these verticals, there's always somebody getting splashed with water. There's always like some kind of dramatic trope, right? That's repetitive. In this one, a
Gabby got
character's,
stabbed. Her first one, she got stabbed in the back,
yep.
right, and then woke up from a coma.
Oh wow, wow. Hey, I mean, and that's like probably five storylines out there that have
Right.
it could fit that vertical. Um, but this character's supposed to drive by a puddle, splash this character with water, and then the scene continues. And so meanwhile, we have to film this in a driveway in front of the house. So imagine, you can't really get a car going up to, even more than 5 miles per hour. So all of these little creative ideas to film it, start with the car up against the puddle and then have it go in reverse, and then we could play it that way, all these
Mhm.
different things. Logistically also, this was at the top of the day. So we had, like maybe like 8, 10 more scenes to film for the rest of the day. And my creative solution for not getting the character wet is, take a cup of water, splash it in front of them, in slow motion, have their reaction, and then we could turn around and just continue the scene. No
Dry.
matter
The actor's dry.
the actor would stay dry, because that's
But
logistically, we don't have time to fix the hair and to
yeah.
reset the wardrobe, all of that kind of stuff. So, that's the way that I film it. We move on to get the reverse. The clients come up and they say, we want her actually wet. And so my job there is to be like, well, hold on. Do you guys understand kind of what that will do to our schedule, everything else? There is a compromise to where we're like, okay, we'll get her shirt a little bit wet. And so we wet her shirt a little bit. And then at that point, still the type of fabric that she was wearing, you couldn't even tell that she was wet.
Sure. Had a
And
wicking
so,
effect. Yeah.
sure, so you couldn't even tell. And, something that I, have to be aware of during that whole time is, even if the character's wet or not, that water splashing in front of them, the audience will still reference that scene as the scene that he drove over a puddle of water and splashed her. So even if she's not soaking wet with her hair, it's still the same scene, it's still the
Mhm.
same beat. And so, there's just that amount of compromising that has to take place. Like if they do want a character to get drenched, then, in prep, that's when we have to talk about, that's going to take an extra hour or so after that scene for them to get ready again. But, that's just an hour that we don't have a lot of the time with these.
Wow. So you're learning these negotiating skills that every director needs at any level.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of attractive young people,
Hmm.
a lot of shirtless young men with pecs to dream about.
Yeah.
And I think in one
For sure.
trailer he was making them bounce. It was just, I was just,
That was a little improv moment too on the set. He's just doing that. I'm like, yes, Eric, do that for the scene. And so of course, we did it. The clients themselves, they're like, what? But I'm like, trust me, guys, trust me. And
well,
of course,
something.
we did it both ways, just in case, with and without that motion. But yeah, it
So
is. Yeah.
are you? Are they intentionally a little melodramatic? Like, are you directing them to be a bit broader?
Sure. I mean, like a bit more like theatrical in that sense,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. For
They're
sure.
goosing
Yes.
the
Yeah.
soap opera effect.
100%. Because
Yeah.
think about it, they'll post just one clip of these, and so the action, it has to start right away, like at a level 10, right? For grabbing the audience's attention as they're scrolling through social media or anything. Every single episode ends on somewhat of a cliffhanger, so it's just you constantly have to keep watching.
And that's in the script.
It's in the script, 100%. Yeah, it's broken
But
down per episode.
each cliffhanger. So does it average a page a minute about, or a
Uh,
little differently?
It averages about a page and a half to two. I mean, they're getting longer with the episode count too. Back when I was
Mhm.
starting out, it was like up to a minute. Now it's between a minute and 2 minutes.
Are you pushing in for dramatic effect? Like, are there dolly moves, or is everything static?
Usually we have one dolly set up if we could have it. Most of the time, the cameras are always static and they usually just push in and post, usually for an effect.
Right.
But there is something that I'm mindful of is like there always is a freeze frame at the end. There's this like ending on a reaction,
Oh,
and that depends on the platform usually. Usually there's a freeze frame real short lately, which I think is the way to do it. It just immediately goes into the next episode. There's no like like a freeze frame moment, hold for like 2 seconds, and then the scroll up to the next episode. Like even that, I think is that little hesitation of the viewer keep watching the next episode. Just have it start immediately is perfect. But that's something that I am mindful of. If there's like this dramatic beat that happens, I tell my actors, give me a freeze frame, because usually like, your instinct is to like look around, like what's
Hmm.
going on. And I tell them, just give me that freeze frame, tell the editor when to end the shot, basically, so have that emotional reaction, look up, freeze, and then that's when they'll just naturally, cut it. Because if you're
Not
looking up
freeze,
and then moving,
not freeze like literally freeze. You mean freeze, but stay in character,
yes,
be
yeah,
be
freeze, stay in
thinking or looking
character.
out to a faraway place and thinking about
Yes,
this
and hold.
moment.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
hold that beat for sure. Yeah.
Locked in an abandoned Luna's body. What is a Luna? Is that someone's name? Or
Yeah,
is
so
that
I
a
had to I
term?
had to learn all these terms and lingos, and it got to a point too where I was correcting the writers on these scripts that I would be getting. But
Secretly married to my billionaire boss.
yeah.
Oh, well, let me read a
Always a
few more.
CEO, there's always a billionaire, there's always.
Loathed by the alpha, and it's got
Mhm.
another wolf in the design there.
Yep.
Stealing my alpha's heart. Stealing my
Heart. Yeah.
alpha's heart. The $1 billion baby. I think that's at the top on Short Max.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
This is so cool. But you did a short film and you made the festival rounds. It
Mhm.
was nothing like this.
Oh no. I mean, even like, that's why, when the opportunity first came up to do these verticals, like I had no idea what the outcome would ever be. Like when I was chatting with you, I was trying to like find my path. It's like, am I gonna do commercials? Because you saw I did some
Yeah.
fun commercials for my
Yeah.
family's business. So I'm like, am I gonna choose this route to eventually do what I want to do, like feature films? Am I gonna check out music videos? Am I gonna do the short film route? Like, what am I gonna do? And then, during the pandemic, I was going through all those health issues. Like I don't know if you remember, but
Hmm.
like on disability for like 6 months. And during that time, I even wrote a script just to, keep myself busy. And, when this opportunity came up to direct the first one, like Real Short was already kind of gaining popularity. There was already some shows out there that, had a following. And so when I looked it up, anybody could get a little cringy when they see alpha and they hear all these terms, but I was just so hungry to work that I didn't even have any sort of hesitation. I just jumped right at it you know, thankfully it had some success. The first one had some success. And then a little fun fact, the actor that was in that first one of mine, he has gone on to have like major success
Oh,
with Real
great.
Short. Yeah, he's done like a lot with Real Short. And and then, my second project did very, very well. So the Unwanted Mate, that one, the platform had it up on their like they were like praising it for having over 100 million views for that year. It was like number
Oh,
three. Like
wow.
another show had like a 300 million, like another one had 200 million, then mine ended up having 100 million. And I'm
100
like,
million.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
you also did the return of the unwanted wife. Have you done the
yeah.
return of the unwanted alpha mate?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a new title.
That's
They'll
a good
make that
title,
one.
right?
I'm 100% they'll make it. Yeah. It's
And
just,
these,
yeah, it's a lot of fun.
there's the women, there's no nudity, right?
No, I mean,
Good.
something that I've always been very, very mindful of too is like, man, these poor female actors going through these shows, like there's so much that they have to go through. Early on,
What do you
there's a lot
mean?
of,
Like violence or because there's a lot
yeah,
of
like
slapping
simulated
and stabbing
violence.
and
Yeah, yeah.
syringes.
Lots of stuff, lots of just simulated abuse, simulated like intimacy,
Yeah.
rough, things like that. So I've always been very mindful about having an intimacy coordinator. So even before they were like used on every single vertical, I was like, I need one right away, like absolutely mandatory.
The producers were down with that. They
I mean,
understood.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was right after the Me Too movement, of course,
Yeah.
so I'm like, we just got to do everything to just make sure everybody's comfortable. Just having that comfort for everybody was really important. And I mean, it's kind of awkward for me as a director to be like, you guys are doing this and you do this and you do that. Like that's not, it shouldn't be my job, as a
Right.
somebody that works in stunts, they stunt coordinate, and so the director doesn't say you guys hit here and do that and fall down. So it just made sense,
That's
to
a good
start working with an
analogy.
intimacy. Yeah,
You
yeah.
have a stunt coordinator?
We have everything. We have stunt coordinators, intimacy coordinators. We worked with children before, so we had, the studio teachers on
Oh,
set, all of
wow.
that stuff. Yeah. So we follow the rules. We follow the rules of the unions, to a certain extent, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
but again, to all non-union. So
Well, it's interesting. Even the way I asked you those questions with surprise, it shows like I was a bit dismissed. Like, oh, you have a stunt, and I don't mean to
sure,
do that
yeah.
because you have to understand the last really, I guess, 3.5 weeks, I've just been immersed in it because Gabby came home. We set up a blue screen and a self tape area. She's
Oh,
cranking out
cool.
auditions. She booked her second one. So now I'm watching and scrolling. And again, like I said, that's why I reached out because I'm like, I know the OG.
One of them for sure,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's been an incredible journey watching. I mean, like, sure, it's a little biased for me because I'm grateful to have all these opportunities for work and stuff too. I can get a little, out of it sometimes, like thinking like, man, am I part of this community? Because I'm just chilling here waiting for my next job versus like being lined up job after job. But, I've gone out and found some actors. Like there's an acting class here in Burbank that I just
Mm,
dropped in, visited once. I think I interviewed him on my podcast before too. His name's
okay.
Brian Cutler. And so he's a acting coach. And so I, just took the initiative. I'd be like, I would love to drop in on a class one day and just do like some in-person, scouting in a way, just see who's some good actors out there. And so there was a girl that I saw there. Her name was Abigail, and I saw her for the first time, and I immediately told her like, "You are going to be a star in these." And so I casted her
I mean,
as
that's a little creepy. A director in Burbank going to an acting class and telling Abigail, you're going to be a star, baby. You didn't say
I
baby
didn't say baby.
because that's me
Yeah.
2.2, 2.0. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I said, you're going to be a star. And she just had the look. And so I casted, of course, other actors in these roles too. And she just blew up. Like she was a supporting role in mine. And then the casting director that was part of that project casted her in another one. And then she just instantly kind of blew up. And she had sent me a little thank you message recently because
Aw,
like her life kind of shifted from, barely having anything to her in her bank account to now she's vacationing in Japan. And
look at
so,
that.
and I mean, just like the amount of actors that are getting messages to film, in like all around the world. Some of them filming in China now. Like it's just been kind of amazing. I had a meeting yesterday with someone that would love for me to come to Turkey to film out there. And I mean, like I haven't been on a
You
plane
have
yet.
to do it.
I know. And so I don't know if I've ever told you, I've never been on a plane yet. So the first time I'm on a plane, I'm going to steal your little foot kick, good luck moment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a family tradition. Just kick the side of the plane.
Just kick the side of the plane. Yeah.
Have you developed a troupe of your own, like not officially, but like an ad hoc group of actors that you like to use? Whether they now, obviously, if it's a sequel, you may have some of the same people, like the Alpha King. You're always going to go to
Sure.
that guy.
Sure.
The star, she's going to be someone you go to. But can they play? They can play different roles in different platforms. They're not
Oh, yeah.
exclusive to the platform or to a series.
No, no,
And then
definitely not.
does Matt have his own group of go-tos that you at least want them to audition for you?
For sure. I mean, again, too, I'm rarely ever involved with the casting. Usually I'll get,
Oh, right.
cast into a project and I'm like, hey, it's you again, and we just, and that's how we work together again. I am in the process of writing my own scripts and, starting my own production company again. And when I get to that point of producing, I will, I have a whole bunch of actors, thankfully, that I've worked with before that are technically like A-list in this little world that we have now. And thankfully, like, I've loved working with them. I think they love working with me. So I would love to have, all of them back. There's a definitely a strength to working with vertical actors again, because they know everything that comes along with the job. They know to be a bit more stiff and to not,
Yeah.
overlap, with another character so much. Versus I worked with a newer actor recently and there's just a lot more questions.
Mhm.
Again, there's a flow state that happens. These actors that are a bit more experienced, they're offering, other advice, they're offering cues, they're doing all this stuff, they're promoting the sense of flow, versus a new actor that's like, why am I saying Luna? What does alpha
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And so I mean, of course we need new actors too. So I take that time to answer all of their questions and still, of course, help them out. but there is, that strength of just trusting, the experience. So if you, that would be kind of an advice for any new actor getting into the process, just trust the flow, trust whatever is going on, try not to kind of disrupt or kind of, I mean, I would hate to say,
Respect the
try not
process.
to, yeah, respect the process. There you go.
You said something that I think is worth pointing out to the listeners right now, filmmakers and creatives, that not only do you want to plug in and be part of the team, but as the director, you want to set the tone. I always say the fish stinks from the head down. You have to set the tone for the flow state to keep people on board. Like when the director freaks out and panics, everything, the sweater unravels. And when the director's indecisive, you see people on the crew just hold back. Like, even if they're not saying it verbally to one another, they're looking at each other like, let's just wait till the director makes up their mind.
Yeah.
As opposed to anticipating problems or setting up for the next thing. You know what? He may change his mind or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that leadership skill of setting the tone is certainly important in any form of directing. Any other vertical challenges or advantages to shooting that way only?
Just going back to the ease of like squeezing out of every location possible, like there in I think it was the Unwanted Mate for an example, going back to a dungeon scene, there's so many, there's always a wedding scene, there's always a dungeon scene and a banquet scene. There's all these like very similar moments, but we were shooting that scene back in my hometown, actually in the Central Valley. So around Fresno, Shaver Lake area. And we were just filming in an Airbnb, and to film that scene in a dungeon, it was just in the master bedroom there was a rock wall, okay, leading into the bathroom. And so it's like, all right, I'll have her placed on this wall and the guard that's watching her placed on this other wall, and we'll just act like we're cheating the reverse, basically.
Right.
So against this wall, it's her background, stone looks very dungeony. And on his background, stone wall looks very dungeony. We'll flip the light, So it's just coming up with constant little creative solutions to just make it work. But I mean, there's a strength, and also that you need to be able to compromise and make those kind of creative adjustments, right? So you could see a disadvantage of having only a wall there to work with, or you can kind of see how you can turn it into the dungeon,
The advantage of perspective, having a perspective. And again, it goes back to what the camera sees. I think cheating the reverse, the first time you do that as a filmmaker, it opens up a whole new world. And because now you're like, oh, I just saved 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I've seen it where people don't even flip the key light because the audience doesn't really know, but we as filmmakers know, and it's a little off-putting on a subliminal level. Like, wait a minute, something's weird here.
Like
Do you
something's
jump?
off, yeah.
Do you jump the line?
Never, unless it's intentionally. No, we'll try not to. So I mean, like all the rules still apply. The rules of like visual language.
Again, I'm dismissive. Again, I'm like,
Yeah, it's like we do
hey,
everything.
wow,
I really
you've
got to invite
sound?
you. I really have. Yeah, right. I know. I really have to invite you on set one day. Definitely on my next project. If you're not booked and doing anything, I'll send an invite
Oh,
over for
please.
sure. Yeah,
You have to take it. You have to travel around the world and shoot.
I know.
And what a
I know.
great way to pay for seeing the world. And last actor question. Are some of these actors, like if they went to China, would they be recognized?
I know one actor definitely is recognized when he goes to places like the Philippines, for example. So
The
Casey,
Faded Alpha. He's the Faded Alpha.
I believe so. I believe so. Yeah. So Casey, but I think that was his show, the Faded Alpha or something like that. But yeah, he is like definitely the OG. The first round of actors. I consider myself maybe in the second wave.
Gotcha.
But the first wave, like early 2023, is when he was in his shows, and those got popular. And yeah, he is someone that if he goes to like the Philippines, he has like articles written about him and like news
I love it.
conventions and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, so it's definitely something it's growing for a lot of people. Yeah.
Bonus question for the actors listening, because we do have actors that listen to the show, and I'm going to make Gabi listen. What advice do you have when auditioning for these? Just treat it like an audition.
Just treat it like an audition, have high energy right away. If you go into it and you're kind of talking a little low or you're not kind of you're tired, again, like just live the part too, just whatever trope it is, if it's some evil stepmom, just be just 200% times whatever an evil stepmom, whatever it would be,
Lean into it.
Just be, yeah, just become that character, even more so. And then, it'll just happen, for real. So
that's great. And then piggybacking off of that question, what advice do you have for filmmakers that want to get into this? I would love to do one.
Oh gosh, yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah,
getting you
a
in one.
blast.
It
might be
is
comedic though.
Yeah, something that I've heard is like it's easier or it's more difficult for people having done like feature films and more like slow paced, more intentional things to come back into this world because it's so chaotic and it's
I'd have no problem.
Yeah,
I love the,
I bet you would. Yeah,
I love the chaos and I love the flow state and I love your mentality going into it. That hey, there's only solutions in filmmaking, and this seems 100%. like and I come from indie film. My first film, we had a script that we improvised off of, but we went around the United States on a tour bus and would show up at a bagel shop and go, let's do scene 67 in the next 30 minutes. Like, everything was, we would shoot all the exteriors going across the country. So we went to these music festivals. And then when we came back to LA, we would just rent a pop-up tent in a parking lot and do the coverage.
Yeah, love
and
it.
some actors weren't even with us on the road, but they were inside that tent.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if it was a blue tent and then we're inside of a white tent. Like the audience doesn't know. They're caught up in the story and these actors' performances. So that was my indie film and then documentaries, I think, would make any filmmaker, not just myself, ripe for this. A combination of discipline, calm, right? And craft.
Yeah.
So
discipline, calm, and craft for sure.
And then after you answer how a filmmaker can get into this, I'm going to ask you about the art of intuitive filmmaking, your book, because I didn't say intuition or the art of this, which is clearly in there. I've been stressing during this interview the craft and the technique and the function, because I'm assuming we all have a point of view as filmmakers, or we all want to develop our point of view. So that's intrinsic to any storytelling through the medium of film. But this is a particular set of skills and tools that you have for the vertical format. As dismissive as I may be, I now have learned you need all the bells and whistles that you have on a feature. What I'm hearing is, and this is where I interrupted you, was if you came from a more steadied pace, methodical, couple weeks, months of prep on a feature, and you're thrown into the alpha wolves of vertical, you may get your feathers ruffled. Like, hey, slow down, everybody. This isn't what we planned. This is what we talked about. 100%. And that's not going to work for you.
Yeah, I do feel like you hit the nail on the head there, saying that it is indie vibes. It is indie filmmaker vibes. A grip, I think, even on the last project or previous one. I got to quit doing that because I'm like, last project, but it wasn't the last one. It was the one before. He did say, he praised the set, saying that it did have indie vibes, that everyone's just chill, getting what they need to do. Kind of, I think for any filmmaker, just follow, these platforms on social media. They usually tag the producers. So just do some homework, meet people, network through Instagram. That's really all I've ever done, is post my work there. And that's gotten me, people, emailing me, wanting interviews, all that kind of stuff. So social media. You were discovered. I was discovered
by the verdict. They reached out to you.
Well, that is true. Well, I mean, the very very first one, how I met her. So this goes back to just volunteer on set, get yourself on set no matter what, because you never know who you're going to meet, and then also be nice to everybody
Yeah,
because you
being
also
yeah.
never know who anybody is. So
Today's
um,
producer, today's PA is tomorrow's executive producer.
100%. I going, this was during film school, so before the pandemic, everything. Like 2018 maybe. I was volunteering on an AFI set as a truck driver. So just driving the equipment or driving the truck there, and I struck up a conversation with this woman that was in Crafty. So she was doing Crafty. She made these tea eggs, which I've never seen tea eggs before. They're like hard-boiled eggs that they crack the shell and then let them soak in tea. And it gets
Oh,
like this really beautiful marbled effect. So I was just praising her tea
tea
eggs.
egg. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wow, these are amazing. And
I've had
fast
iced
forward.
tea eggs.
No, yeah,
They
they're just
freeze them. Yeah.
oh wow, I never had
No,
those.
I'm just going. I'm
Yeah,
just.
yeah,
Yeah.
you
Go
sound
ahead.
fun.
Sorry.
No,
So
no, you're good.
she's doing crafty. You're driving a truck.
And I just happened to strike up a conversation with her praising her tea eggs, just over this little mundane little thing, having a conversation with her, being friendly, and all that. And then add each other on Instagram, fast forward all these years. And she's the one that asked me, would I like to do a vertical? That's the first one. Yeah. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah. So all thanks to her for, beginning the journey. But yeah, going into intuition and these things. So, as you say, it takes, you have to know the craft, right? In order to get through all this stuff. It was my first time experiencing all of those things. And so, I had to follow my intuition in order to learn the craft, right? And a lot of those, like, there's like, you can definitely don't be afraid to fail and make the wrong choices, so
Hmm.
that's what pushes you out there to just make the effort anyway. But I think it was just following the intuition that I was making the right choices along the way. And thankfully, I think it's worked out so far. But it's just following your intuition to say, yes to those opportunities, or even know when to say no. But I think, yeah, that's one of the biggest factors for sure is intuition and trusting your instincts.
When did you write The Art of Intuitive Filmmaking?
That was during the pandemic, I believe. Just all throughout the pandemic. Little notes. I have, pre-notes of, wait, actually, no, it has,
What
oh
did you
no,
make?
afterwards. It was like 2020 to 2021, 2022-ish, because a lot of it has like some like impromptu little improv films that I did in
Uh-huh.
there too that I shot vertically for it.
But by coincidence.
No, kind of just because after I did my first vertical, I was like, just let me just shoot vertically and just see how this feels. I did the first, I'm talking about The Sinister Strain. This is like a
Yeah.
little impromptu horror film that I did. This is, I was volunteering. Well, no, actually I wasn't volunteering on that set. I was getting paid for it. But it was like for, gosh, like a 2 week long little indie film shoot. And, one day, we're getting off very, very late from set. You know, it's like probably like 3 in the morning or something, like 1 o'clock in the morning. And then we all get together and just impromptu, let's make this little short film. Like we were all staying at an Airbnb, we kind of hear this noise inside the house. We all go through it and investigate it. And then as we close the front door, as we're coming back inside, close the front door, this idea just hit me. And it's like just a rush of visuals. And it's like, all right, let's capture this. Like, do you guys want to film something really quick? And of course, they're like young, hungry filmmakers. And so
3
it's
a.m.
like, yes, 1 a.m. I think we filmed from
Okay.
1 a.m. to 3 a.m. So
Gotcha.
filmed a
Gotcha.
quick little 2 hour little shoot. And like the rest of the filming for that indie feature continues, and I just quickly edit it, and then at the wrap, that's when I premiered it for them. It was it's a fun little short film for not having like a script or anything and just following kind of just an idea that we kind of made up on the spot. It was a fun little short film. I think it got accepted into the Santa Clarita Film Festival.
That's on the list.
Yeah, and so that one, it got in there, and then it went. I did two more after that. I did the second one, which was after actually. So it's in between the verticals that I did for the first one. So this was actually 2023. So
Well, when
just
when
all
you
these years blurring
when you
together.
say harnessing your instincts as a director, I'm imagining the thesis of The Art of Intuitive Filmmaking.
Mhm.
And other than the pandemic, what inspired you to write the book?
Mhm. I think, I'm big into psychology in that sense too. I've always just been a person to follow my own kind of intuition. And yeah, I think it was just really something that I kind of wanted to tap into.
Matt, this has been so great to catch up with you, and thanks for schooling me and the listeners on the world of verticals. I'm going to call them verts.
Let's call them verts. Yeah.
Kind of
I'm a vert
appropriated
director.
from the skater world, but and continued success. When people click on your name in the show notes, where should it take them?
Um, Gosh, either my website or my Instagram. I am most popular or most like I post more on my Instagram, just posting like BTS clips and stuff. So I think, I would love for, any of your fans and people that follow the page to follow me on Instagram. So Instagram would probably be best at Matt Macedo. And then anybody that wants to get in contact with me, to hire me, you can definitely reach out either through Instagram is also a great way, or my website, mattmacedo.com.
Matt, before we go, there's one question that I ask of everyone, and we end the show this way. What does respect the process mean to you?
Respecting the process to me means respecting tradition, respecting the language of film, and respecting the process of failure and discovery. Learning from your mistakes and those failures rather than running from them, and applying those lessons that you've learned moving forward. Respecting those around you and their efforts to contribute to your vision is also a big part of respecting the process to me. And, trusting in your intuition, trusting the universe and that everything that happens is meant to happen and it's meant to be. So trust that everything is meant to happen.
That's a great answer. Okay, I'm going to see you on set. Continued success, and thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Cool.
I'll
Alrighty,
see you
everybody.
later.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Commercial Directing Film School's mission is to help filmmakers direct commercials professionally. With online courses and in-person boot camps, we demystify the process to get you to the next level, all taught by your accessible mentor, filmmaker Jordan Brady.
True Gentleman Industries. We make commercials.